Boom! According to that, I am live. I am not on camera right now. Let me tilt this around and put this up. And blinding. My microphone wasn't being detected by the software stuff, so I was just reinstalling my mic. And yeah, the screen capture looks a bit different than normal. I don't know what happened. But anyway, good to see you all. And yes, nice to see people in the comments. I noted, those of you who are following on Twitter, that the Virgin Galactic first kind of official launch with Branson is happening in exactly 1 hour's time. So I really want to watch that live. So that's my motivation to stay on schedule. We'll see how successful I am at that. Got a few topics to talk about tonight. A bit going on. The Olympics, of course, now about 2 weeks away. Yeah, some more stuff happening with that. The weather's been kind of miserable most of the week. It's been really like, it's not just like rainy season. It's like dark and gloomy and really humid. But there again, the last 2 days we've switched to what summer is. And summer is, of course, instantly all is forgiven with rainy season. The white balance is really all over the place tonight, isn't it? I don't know why that is. But anyway, yes, that and other things sort of going on. Good to see everybody in the comments. Anyway, let's have a quick look. And Mr. Cordy Chap, good to see you. Andrea Moboy, good to see you as well. The traffic warden, I wish. Unfortunately, no. We've got Aaron, bada boom. Thank you once again, Aaron, not only for moderating, but also doing such a great job with all the edits and the uploaded videos through the week. Really appreciate that. Technical features, that is correct. I had 2 technical features tonight, but as usual, we work our way through. Bada boom, nice with the emoji. Looking good there. What else? Who else we got in here? We've got Quinn Rankin. Good to see you. Lysander 45. Excellent to see you. Whether it's Buenos Dias, Buenos Tardes, or Buenos Noches, wherever you are in the world. AV84K. Good to see you. Kerberos Tenshi. Oh my God, it's happening. You mean the Virgin Galactic thing? Yeah, it looks like it is today, which is pretty cool. Actually 2. I mean, happening. I think a week from now is also the Blue Origin launch, which is also kind of cool. I mean, that's something which, if it's affordable, I would like to do myself, honestly, like either one of them. So super cool. But yes, we've got AV84K, Ada Void, good to see Ada Void. Sergeant Bilko, excellent to see you, and everybody else here. Mr. Cordy Chip, so tired. I'm sorry to hear that you're so tired. I'll try to make it, hopefully. Well, I'll try to make it interesting, but I am aware that people do use this show as a sleeping aid, so we'll see how we go with that. Milena, good to see you. Good to see you back, Milena. Good to have you in here. In Tokyo 503. Hi, folks. Good to see you as well. Oh yeah, Wimbledon, of course, going on at the moment. The Euro final on tonight, England versus Italy. For those of you who are interested, like 4 o'clock in the morning, Japan time. So I won't be watching it, but I'm sure some people will be. And yeah, if you're in the comments, as always, say hello. Even if you're like a lurker, it's just nice to see people that are there. If you watch this and you don't subscribe, do me a favor, subscribe. It's good for the channel, as well as liking is also appreciated, especially if you like the content. If you want to get my attention anytime, I'll generally tell a story, and then gotta remember the 5-minute thing. It kills me that my phone has an unresolvable technical issue. It will not. This phone over here will not charge. Yeah, I've got to figure that out. I want to get a new iPhone. I'm chasing squirrels right now, but I'm going to get the new iPhone this year. I put off last year. Normally I go on 2 or 3 year purchase cycles. Yes, I think I held off last year, even though last year was my buying year, but I think I'll do it this year, and that way I'll use this as my new control phone for all of this. But anyway, going back to it, if you want to get my attention, do what AV84K just did. You can @mark. It looks like you don't even actually have to @mark. It'll just highlight if it says my name. So yeah, Andrea Mulboy, thank you for saying hello. AV84K, a few weeks ago, your country removed a lot of COVID restrictions, so now cases are going up very fast, unsurprisingly. AV84K, what country is that, by the way? Sorry, you might have told me before and I can't keep track, but it's always really interesting to know where people are checking in from. And sorry to hear that with cases there, although, yeah, I'm hearing that story from a lot of countries, actually. The Delta variant is indeed scary, and it seems to be contributing to what's happening in Tokyo. I will talk about that a little bit tonight. We've got, but say hello anyway. DJ Sunnyside Up, good to see you. You just made your music videos for the week. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to see that you're still making music all the time as well. It's something I just completely lost the ability to do lately, just for time and stuff like that. So much respect for that. Believe in yourself. Good to see you. Netherlands. Oh, geez, so I'm sorry that it's, although with Euro, I mean, I don't know. The news in Japan was like, yeah, people are saying, hey, is this because of Euro? Everyone seems to be having a great time, but yes, indeed. I have no idea why that would be flagged. The AI has indeed, it seems to be becoming sentient, and it's just making its own decisions. It's kind of good news and kind of terrible news. But yeah, Erin's also going to upgrade her phone soon. Kerberos Tenshu, if you think that my voice is real, oh, you did a reading of that yourself, Kerberos Tenshu. That's actually pretty impressive. Yeah, I've seen New South Wales being silly as, I mean, all the states are being silly as usual. I mean, I saw, I do watch Media Watch. I checked out, somebody recommended like a more of a comedy version of Media Watch, which, yeah, I didn't really like, but I like ABC Media Watch. I watched that on YouTube. And yeah, it just reminds me how nuts Australia is. Like the fact that Queensland has decided to like ban AstraZeneca for people under 40. And all the sort of silliness where people are allowed into the country, but Brisbane, but the Queensland won't let them, airport, state won't let them out of the airport and stuff like that. Is all the states there seem a little bit loopy. So yeah. Anyway, lots of craziness going on in all parts of the world, and that's what we are, of course, going to talk a bit about tonight, but with a particular focus on Japan. And yeah. I mean, I'm going to jump in because I actually have I want to try to be on time. Victoria comply. Victoria complies. Is that what you mean? Yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, I think Australia is very lucky. It's kind of weird in a way. Australia is way better off than Japan is by numbers of my cases and stuff like that. But everyone there seems much more stressed out. I mean, here, yeah, I must admit. Oh, I have some good personal news to share. I am scheduled once again. I actually had a vaccination scheduled a couple of weeks ago, and it got cancelled. But I managed to schedule another one, still with work. But also I got my voucher last week, so I should be able to do it locally as well, like in a month from now, because they do it by age. So I'm not eligible yet in my local area, although I have my voucher number for it. If you're in Japan, the government, the regional rollouts, you need a voucher. Yeah, in terms of I'm also entitled to a workplace vaccination, and that will be at the end of this week. I'll be able to get my first Moderna shot. I'm looking forward to that. And paying attention to some of the, people who have had side effects for mostly sore arms and stuff like that and feeling crappy for a day afterwards. But some people doing really like intense exercise right after, which I think my running counts as, just looking at my heart rate from it. I've heard people getting into trouble with that, so I think I'm definitely going to take it easy, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be like 4 weeks, I think, for the Moderna shots in between, 3 weeks for Pfizer. But I can't wait to get both of those done. I mean, just for the sake of everyone around me and myself. I'll be talking tonight about this new state of emergency in Tokyo and, of course, its impact on the Olympics and all of that stuff. But, yeah. DJ Sunnyside Up, I'm sorry to hear that your daughter was sick most of the week. I'm glad that... I'm hoping that she's feeling better, but she enjoys music too, so that's good to hear. Flying celebs into Australia but cannot repatriate others stuck abroad. Oh, indeed. And every country has variations of that. I think that's actually part of what I want to talk about tonight. That is the second blackout, so I suppose that is warning me to get a move on and start doing this, so I will do that. Runway incursion. Good to see you. I've heard that about the second shot, that it's the second shot that gets you with Moderna. Is it the second shot or the first shot? I don't know. Well, anyway, Runway Incursion, congrats on getting the second shot anyway. And thank you for joining. Thank you for saying hello, because I don't recognize the name, and it's nice to see a new name there. So yeah, remember, say hello. I will go back through the comments in between the stories. But the first big news, of course, is Kenny G has been arrested on charges of marijuana and meth in Japan. Now, when I first saw that Kenny G had been arrested on charges of meth and marijuana possession, I thought that's like the coolest thing Kenny G has probably ever done. It turns out, however, Kenny G, with a hyphen, is this guy. He's like a Japanese rapper. When I did double take, I mean, I was like, how did Kenny G even get into Japan in the first place, let alone bring a bunch of weed and meth with him? But, oh yeah, when I look at this Kenny G, I mean, if... Of all the rapping names in the world that you could choose, if I was going to become a gangster, Kenny G isn't really. I mean, I'm guessing he has his own reasons, but yes, I must admit I was pretty shocked for about 5 seconds until I clicked on the article, but it was funny. And again, kids, if you're in Japan, don't do meth as sort of universal. But Japan, the country which invented crystal meth, by the way, or at least the artificial version of it, Japan invented it. But still illegal as hell, and just like weed was also not illegal until after the war during the occupation. Japan has this way of fully embracing imported laws and morality, like more than the countries that they took it from. And so yeah, don't be like Kenny G. That's the story for tonight. Do not don't do these things, and if you do them, don't bring them into Japan or do them in Japan, because you'll end up in immigration detention and prison, and nowhere good. So just remember, kids, don't be like Kenny G. Don't do it. Just say no. That's the first story. Hiko as a gangster. Indeed, you better believe it. Yeah, I was a little shocked. I had to figure that one out myself, Andrew Mobboy, but that was the first story. Second story, not quite as fun as the first one. There's a story that has been going around where, well, not so much even a story. A number of people on Twitter were sharing have you seen this person, missing person information around Twitter, and if I saw it, I reshared it. I didn't add anything to it. I didn't actually know anything about it. And of course, with all the possibilities, what immediately I and everybody, I think, who saw this, particularly the missing person reports, were immediately concerned about were, there are a couple of cases involving foreign women and pretty, horrible, going missing for a long period of time and turning up murdered. And so this was the first concern, that there was a kidnapping or some sort of thing like that. And the family was looking for Alice Hodgkinson. Yeah, a couple of days ago now, it turns out, and this is more covered in the British press than the local press, but yes, I don't understand all the facts of this fully and honestly. It's really, for me, I don't like talking about this sort of news very much, but I think there's a purpose to it with this. It appears that the police eventually did go, and her house was locked, but they broke in, they found a note, and apparently they found her inside. And although I haven't seen anything directly say that it was suicide, that is what it appears to have been. Very sad, obviously, for her and her friends and her family and so on who were concerned for her. And I don't know anything about her or her case or even the facts of this, or even if that's accurate. So, and I'm not going to speculate about her at all, other than to pass my condolences on to her family. However, that said, I thought I would take the opportunity to talk a little bit about, there is a thing that, coming to living in Japan as an expat, and I kind of don't really consider expats, I suppose, it's a fuzzy sort of a definition. What's the difference between a foreigner and an expat? Well, I suppose everyone who's not Japanese who lives in Japan are foreigners. I'm definitely a foreigner. I don't really consider myself an expat. Expatriate implies someone living out of their normal country. So I guess there's two ways that you look at that. You could look at that as being somebody sort of assigned to Japan, like, working in a bank or something like that. And, there's this sort of wealthy image of expats, people who are working in banks in Japan on assignments for a couple of years and living in, like, company housing in nice neighborhoods and stuff like that. There are other people who are just, living here without the intention, of staying here for a long time. Of course, that second category can encompass, working holiday visa people and tourists and whatnot. I suppose there is a thing that the people like that are not so looked after, and of course, are not necessarily privileged sorts of people. There is a thing, certainly, there are so many people for a long time who come to Japan and who are attracted to Japan, who watch, channels like this. Because I'll be the first person to say that, what's great about Japan is its it sort of has it's a slightly different dimension. It's got everything that you've got in other modern Western countries and whatever, but Japan's got its own take. It's got its own very unique sort of culture, which has been able to protect from colonialism and whatnot. And on top of that, the other thing that I would say is, of course, no place is perfect, but it's overwhelmingly, generally, you could say, safe. And so it's a great place to come and have a bit of an adventure, to go out on your own, and sort of particularly when you come at the sort of age that I came, when I was in my early 20s. It's a good place to come and have an adventure, and it's something I think a lot of people do in their 20s and whatever. And I certainly note the motivations for people and the numbers of people have changed over the years. It was definitely, when I got here, now more than 20 years ago, it was still kind of weird and strange and rare to come to Japan. Now you say to people, hey, I go to Japan, everyone goes, oh, that's so cool. I've been planning to go to Japan. Everyone seems to have trips planned to Japan nowadays, at least outside of COVID. So it seems to be less exotic to come here now, and people sort of recognize and they say, oh, that's so cool, which I've always thought, yeah, it's cool, that's why I'm here. But it's weird, it's gone a little bit mainstream lately. But certainly, the upside, I suppose, of it becoming more mainstream is that I think there are more foreigners here now, which allows larger communities and better support networks and whatnot. But nonetheless, there is still a large percentage, a large group of people that come to Japan. I think people who go anywhere, who travel anywhere, there's all sorts of reasons that people travel. And I don't think it's ever as simple as that people travel for positive or negative reasons. People, travel for both, I guess. I mean, I'd certainly say that's, in my case, absolutely. Positive in the sense of wanting to go and have an adventure and go and do something, unique and asserting your own identity and so on. And so many people, adore Japanese culture from all sorts of different perspectives that they come out here. It can, however, there are certainly, I suppose you could say, negative aspects. There are people who come because they are escaping from social pressure, from, feelings of... certainly you come from a place like New Zealand, like where I came from, where you grow up and there's a relatively low population and low degrees of separation. The fact that I started playing rugby here shocked a lot of my schoolmates from school, because they couldn't imagine a nerd like me, playing rugby, and that's why I left, so I could come here and play rugby, badly. And I could do other things. And, there is that thing about wanting to sort of go out. And this is true, even you can do this domestically. This is like when country people go to cities. It's like when city people, travel or do anything like that. Going to a new place and surrounding yourselves with new people. It's something actually, a lot of people in the world do. However, the big thing about coming to Japan that catches a lot of people out, a lot of people talk about this, is the idea that... there is a big difference when you, I think it's a great part of becoming an adult, which you particularly do in your 20s, is becoming sort of self-reliant and becoming confident in who you are. And a big part of discovering that identity is making mistakes and facing adversity, getting into trouble and figuring things out. And you've always got options for that. You either do that where you are, and the advantage of doing that where you are is you've got family and friends and support and whatnot nearby. And the other option is to go out somewhere on your own and to build your own sort of life. And the upside is, if you're not really happy with your home situation, if you're not sort of happy, and I'm not saying any of this applies in this particular case, but I'm just talking generally. I think for a lot of the people who come to Japan, some people leave purely, I think, for an adventure or a whim. They don't even think about it very much. But there's a lot of people, I think, come to Japan with a lot of pre-set expectations that Japan is where people understand me. I feel like the culture there fits better than the culture here. Now, that applies to me. When I was in New Zealand, I remember like when I started living on my own, and every time you'd have like a flat party with my friends from high school or university, stuff would get stolen. You couldn't trust people. You have to lock stuff up. I hated that. And this is in New Zealand, which is as safe as places get outside of Japan. When I was living with Japanese people, the fact that everyone has just got a degree of trustworthiness and common sense that I consider normal, for me, that was a big thing. But I know it goes beyond that. There are people who, are awkward. There's a lot of people who come from all sorts of backgrounds where, in a way, they're running away from the awkwardness and hoping for a fresh start in a place like Japan. And truth is, you get that with coming to Japan. That's a great thing about coming to Japan. However, the problem, of course, is is that, particularly if you're running away from something, you have to bear in mind that, you are likely to run into, at the very least, the same kinds of problems you face where you are, and those problems are going to be much, much harder to deal with in Japan. And it's natural to be optimistic when you're going somewhere, for the first time, to basically go through it all with positivity and whatnot. But this is why most of the foreigners leave within 3 years, is that it's hard to manage, like even regular things, even paying bills, doing normal sort of stuff is very hard to sort of manage in Japan. Everything is harder to do, including making friends, including, having that sort of support. And you're in a much smaller, it's like you're in the small sort of village of foreigners. So, it happens that when people are feeling really stressed and really isolated and, small things, when they become really big things, you don't have family nearby, you don't have the friends that you grew up with, you're often really on your own. And, those support networks are not there. And there are cases that I know about, that of other people where, the stress of needing to cope on your own in Japan can lead to mental illness. People actually, I've heard of cases of people being institutionalized, but people having full-on sort of stress and nervous breakdowns, cases all the way up to and including suicide. What happens with most people is they sort of realize that, if they get to a point that they can't really go on, most people leave. And sometimes they'll leave to go somewhere else and start the process over again. And you hear about people who hop all over Asia in particular. They'll go to Korea, China, Thailand, and stuff like that. Some particularly dysfunctional people who just go around being obnoxious in every country and stuff like that. But majority of people treat it as an adventurous episode and they go home. I think what's making it particularly difficult at the moment, when you consider the impact of COVID on things like English teachers, for example, where people are going out less and they're having less classes and whatnot, and the extra economic stress from that, and not knowing how, to be able to cope when you're struggling like in daily life. And the fact that travel is restricted as well, so you can't even travel back home, if you want to, at least as easily. And things like vaccinations, when you get vaccinated, what if you get COVID, what if you need medical treatment? I mean, I can imagine there's a ton of stresses on people. Foreigners from any country would be feeling, all the normal stresses that can make people, push people over the edge. Enough as it is, let alone you add on top of it the situation that we're dealing with right now. From that perspective, there are not a lot of, I do want to share that there's this, and by the way, I've seen positive and negative things about this, but the first thing is, I know what it's like myself to be in a situation of extreme stress, like, breaking up with somebody and being out on my own and sort of wondering what the hell I'm doing while I was struggling at work when I was setting up in Japan, and genuinely having no one to talk to, having no friends. I've been through that, and it's like, I look back on it now and I kind of laugh at it because it was the same. It's like, it's remembering a really miserable, awful experience that really stressed me out a lot and really made me question a lot of things about my life. I wouldn't say I ever got, close to, I definitely got into, I'd say, a situation like depression. I think I've definitely gotten into that. And I think most people I've talked to who have lived long-term in Japan have been through this sort of thing. And truth is, and I wanted to talk to people, but I didn't have them around to talk to, and I wouldn't have known where or how to reach out to something like this. So the fact that something like Tell Japan exists is a great thing. And, there are resources now, thanks to the internet, for people to know that they can. There are services where you can reach out in English. They're limited, they're hard to find, but this is why. If you look up Gaijin Pot, there are counseling services and so on. Definitely this Tell Japan, it sounds like there's a lot of amateur sort of counselors there and so on, but you know what, it still is better than nobody, and I believe there's a lot of people in Japan in a nobody situation, and I've been through that situation myself, and I wouldn't recommend it to other people. And by the way, I would be awful to talk to because I am myself very much the sort of go hard or go home sort of, psychologically unhealthy type, that I really believed myself that I had to sort of tough it out, and I did it, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So, look, I just want to, note the story. It's terribly sad for her family, and I have no idea what she was going through, but I do know that, The people are under extraordinary, just being in Japan can be a great adventure, but it can also be extraordinarily stressful, even when things are normal. And things are definitely not normal right now. If you add on top of that the travel restrictions, the economic uncertainty, and the health and everything else, I know there's a lot of people out there right now going through a lot of things, and you imagine the stress that puts onto things like relationships, and everything else. I know there's a lot of people going through a lot. And all I can say is that there are resources out there to help, and it's much better than it was. Also, the other thing I just remind people in the normal situation is it's okay to leave and come back. It's not worth. Some people get so invested in being here, and they equate leaving to being some sort of a failure. And again, I'll relate. When I was going through dark moments of my early years in Japan, that's totally how I saw it, and that's a really dangerous and unhealthy way to look at things. I think you should always need to think, even if you're completely positive and sure that you're going to stay in Japan, think about what your plan B is. Think if Tokyo sank into the ocean, which actually is a possibility. Again, we all know this sort of thing can happen in Japan. You got to have a plan for where you're going to stay. Where would you go if you had to get on a plane and leave the country tomorrow? If Japan was kicking out all the foreigners, you got to have that in the back of your brain, just so that you know what your plan B is. So look, have a plan B, and remember, the point is everything is a two-way door. Every choice, there's no choice involving staying in Japan that can't be reversed or undone and then redone. So remember, there's always better alternatives. There's ways out of situation. You're never stuck in a situation. And if you need help, there are options for help. And this is the first place to start, but definitely Google online and try to find what's out there. And please, everybody, I really would love to meet every one of you in Japan at some point. And after all this craziness is over, hopefully it will become over at some point. To do another meetup and things like that is great. But it's an adventure, but it's it's like being in a race. You are allowed to pull into the pits. You have to take care of yourself first to be able to enjoy everything else. So just for everyone watching this, I would say think of this story and just think I feel terrible for the idea that somebody was in a situation that they felt they didn't have any other sort of options. And remember how important it is to make sure you leave those options for yourself. That's part of planning your adventure, right? Is making sure that you've got those safety nets and you know where they are. And they are out there. Those options are there. So anyway, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Not what I normally talk about, but this is a pertinent story and a good time to remind everybody. I'll move on into the comments. And a lot here, I think. Let me go back and see if I can catch where we are up to. Lysander 45, don't do meth or marijuana. Yes, indeed, good advice. They're not that much. Des, good to see you. Also good to see Sadiq from Miami, Virgin Galactic Day. Indeed, we'll be watching that right after. Never say no to coffee. Yes, that's right. I used to take Ripobitan. I didn't drink coffee till I was like 35. And it was because I destroyed some of my inner organs drinking too much Ripobitan, and then I just gave up and drank coffee like medicine. Now I can't live without it, but so I guess it is like meth. But it did strike me that for all the caffeine-related drinks that I was drinking, coffee is the one that made me feel the least angsty and so on. So yeah. A lot of people have this Kurbris Tenchi, a lot of people have this romantic image of Japan and want to live that life and then realize it's not that. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the point. Thank you. You put the point I was trying to make better than I made it, Kurbris Tenchi. I think that's exactly it. A lot of people have this kind of idealized view of Japan. I don't know if that's anything to do with this case, but there's a lot of people I know who come here and they, discovering that anime isn't real. And that Japan isn't like a real life version of anime or something like that. There's people who go through that, and I know who get traumatized by that. There's actually a reverse version of that, by the way. There's something called Paris syndrome, which is where Japanese have this over-romanticized image of Paris, go to Paris, and discover everyone's kind of rude, slightly racist at times, and they get traumatized and they start having association disorder or something like that. And they actually have hotlines at the embassy in Paris for dealing with Japanese, dealing with the inverse version that people seem to come to Japan and have from believing, not just anime. I mean, people who come here for the martial arts and for the Buddhism and all that sort of stuff as well. But yes, indeed. Yeah, and it sounds like in this particular case she left a letter, but yes. Baldrick Big Balls, is he talking about Ryan Boundless? I'm not talking about Ryan Boundless. I don't know much about the guy other than I saw the criticizing the sandwich video, which actually I thought was quite good. But yeah, personally, I don't like to, again, this is maybe a survival mechanism going through 23 years, is I try not to spend too much attention on people who I think are overwhelmingly negative. There are some people like that. I wouldn't use the word toxic. People can be however they like. There are some people who just like to be negative, but I don't need to spend my time watching him. But yes, I understand that he was a big topic for a while. Tai Nakamura, good to see you. Aaron, Western women can have a hard time in Japan for sure. I think it's a bit different for men. Sure, I mean, but it can be tough for men too. It's like the suicide rate in Japan is terrible for men, and it's been going up for women, but it still is 1/10 of men. It's not to say that women are not going through a tough time right now, just the same. But certainly, yes, I think for women, certainly you hear about things like the big complaint, of course, that you hear about the stereotype is a romantic situation where men that they're interested in are all into Japanese women, but Japanese men are often intimidated by Western women. And I've spent many drinks and dinners hearing people express frustration at the social opportunities in Japan being limited. But there again, I mean, so many Western women I know who have become, who have married Japanese guys and have great relationships here, and then do set themselves up. So sometimes, but they're, perhaps they came in with a certain mindset that opened them up for more success. Certainly. It's easier for men. I think that's a fair statement. I think you're right about that, Aaron. I will go now. Paragotti, good to see you, and very happy to follow you on Twitter. Is it your same handle name on Twitter? I definitely, I'm sure if I saw your handle name, I'd follow you back. But yes, indeed. My mental health notes, which. Yeah, believe me, the last thing I want to do on this channel is do anything other than direct people to good health, and again, I don't know if this is necessarily the best one, but to direct you to where you can get mental health support, because I wouldn't pretend to be able to give advice on it myself, other than to tell you I can certainly give advice on what I've done that's wrong. I can share lots of mistaken advice and experience, but yeah. Oliver Cromwell, I don't like Japan. I'm moving to Iceland instead. Well, good on you, Oliver Cromwell. I'm sure Iceland is looking forward to having you. Jack, coffee makes you more anxious. Yeah, that's what coffee does. Although compared to like Monster or V or... Yeah, I find coffee is on those sort of anxiety side effects does better. They're AV84K. And honestly, there are nicer places in France to visit. Avignon, for example. I'm sure, actually. And I'd love to visit France sometime. But again, the problem is you have too many Japanese who... It's exactly the same as believing anime is real and coming to Japan and discovering that it's not and being traumatized is what happens with Paris. And, look, Paris has done a great job marketing itself. Maybe too good of a job. I'm not sure I would have the same expectations. I would totally expect to see sewer rats and meet rude people, as well as still have awesome food and have a great time. But yeah, I don't really have a romanticized view. That's the point, right? Dan H, good to see you, Dan H. Also, be careful about moving abroad. Have a backup plan as you have friends stuck in Beirut with electrical problems and hyperinflation. Well, there you go. There's a case for a plan B. That plan B is a really, really important part. I mean, like when I went to South America, I remember my uncle telling me when I was going to Argentina, carry a credit card inside your sock, inside your shoe. Wear a second sort of money belt inside your underwear and all this sort of stuff. Like basically expect to be mugged. And as much as I was like, holy crap, I really want to go to Argentina. And I went to Argentina and I had a wonderful time there. But I'll tell you what, I caught people trying to rob me in like the space of a week. I was backpacking. I was like 21. I caught people like 3 or 4 times, but the fact was that every single time I was able to get out of the situation safely, and because I followed my uncle's advice, I had a backup, I had coverage. I knew I wasn't about to lose my passport or my money from any of these situations where people were trying to take my backpack. Yeah, it left less of a bad taste because I sort of went in there with the plan B. Going into a place with no plan B is, even in Japan, you're opening yourself up to a lot of risk. Yeah, guys, English World, good to see you. 270, AJ, good to see you. And yeah, I'm going to get back into the next story because once again, we're at the top of the hour and all I've talked about is Kenny G and mental health. Wow, it's actually 7 minutes past the hour, so I'm going to have to speed it up. I had to talk about this. So, yeah, bad life decisions. The Tokyo Olympics are 2 weeks away, and there's a lot of updates going on. It was actually Lisa Du, I think, is she from Bloomberg or one of the journalists I follow online? Yeah, she was in a department store and saw that there was they were selling official licensed underwear with Tokyo 2020 written on it, and all I could think is like, this is like the perfect underwear to wear when you're about to make a terrible life decision. I mean, just imagine. I could just imagine scenarios of, someone being in a position to see the underwear and suddenly realize, this is a terrible mistake. How could you think anything else if you saw this or wore this or whatever? No, the comic possibilities of this are just unlimited. I'm really curious if they actually sell any of this or like who would buy underwear with Tokyo 2020 written all over it. But yeah, I must admit, then I started to think maybe I actually should get some. But there again, the joke would only be for myself. So yeah, but that's the thing. I suppose as a gift, as a sort of an inappropriate gift for somebody who you think has self-control issues. There you go. If you know someone who's a compulsive gambler, perhaps, or someone who needs to self-reflect on the recent decisions that they've been making on life, this is the perfect present. Some Tokyo 2020 underwear. Speaking of reconsidering bad life decisions, Fukushima and Hokkaido have decided to join the Tokyo surrounding prefectures of not having, with the announcement of a new state of emergency, they've decided that they will not have anyone. Originally, it was only going to be Saitama, Chiba, Kanagawa, Tokyo. We're going to have no spectators. However, what of course happened was everyone in Tokyo started cramming for the tickets for Fukushima and Shizuoka and Hokkaido, and immediately everyone in the other prefectures said, doesn't that mean all the infected people from Tokyo are going to come here to visit to watch instead? And based on that, Fukushima and Sapporo decided, yeah, homie, don't play that. So they changed their minds about that. At the moment, you can still go and watch events in Miyagi Prefecture, Shizuoka Prefecture, and and Ibaraki Prefecture. However, probably, they'll be changing that as well, I would imagine. This is the thing. With the last couple of times when there have been school holidays and it's only been in Tokyo, immediately the holiday destinations, Okinawa, Hokkaido, those places become as bad as Tokyo because we take it, and this is also why I've been saying all along, yes, it's self-interested and selfish and so on to say this, but is it really better to do the distribution of the vaccines all over Japan geographically equally, or is it better to concentrate the vaccines in the areas that actually have cases and prioritize those other areas that don't have cases so that you can actually eradicate it in Tokyo and lessen the risk of people from Tokyo spreading it all over the rest of the country in the meantime? Doesn't it make more sense to target the areas where there actually is COVID with the vaccines first? Japan in the end has gone for this geographic equitable distribution model, and sure, I can imagine that the politicians would be afraid of backlash if Tokyo got it, because Tokyo isn't worth any votes, and rural towns, they want to feel protected. But at the end of the day, are they really more protected doing it that way? So the result is, anyway, it appears that all the Olympic venues are going to be without spectators, which is fair. Look, all the money more or less comes in through television broadcasting anyway. It's a shame. I like the Olympics, and but I never planned to be getting tickets for this. And again, being in a crowded stadium, and even on the off chance that there could be like clusters or anything like that, just doesn't seem worth it. Having the Olympics at all still seems ridiculous. Interesting, the celebrities that are rolling into Japan. celebrities isn't really the right word, but prominent people, for example. Apparently, Tedros from the WHO, who criticized Japan last February for introducing travel restrictions on China, when he was like, oh no, you mustn't overreact and restrict trade, particularly with countries like China that we believe are doing a very good job, which had everyone, and this is before Trump and everyone started, this is in February last year, so before, people that thought it was even going to make it to America, before the ferry even came to Japan. Japan reacted very fast to cut travel ties, and the WHO criticized Japan, and immediately everyone in Japan said, oh, they're getting money from China, well, we're just not going to listen to anything you say anymore. My son still makes fun of Tedros. So, it was in fashion here a long time before. Before he became a problem anywhere else. But he's coming to Japan from the WHO apparently to support the Olympics. I have no idea how he's going to do that, but apparently that is something that he is doing. More welcome than Tedros is Audrey Tang, the health minister of Taiwan, who, well, now they're struggling a little bit with the Delta variant, and of course they're struggling to get vaccines in Taiwan, but they've had a pretty good run there. And, again, having an actual epidemiologist as a minister in charge of it has been a good move for Taiwan. So she's a bit of a celebrity here in Japan, and she will be a more welcome attendee. But there again, why is anyone coming to Japan? Like, even for the opening ceremony, like the president of Korea is coming, and that's great. If Korea and Japan can get along better, that's wonderful. But why are you coming? Doesn't make sense to me that anyone would be coming to Japan for any reason, honestly, even the athletes. But if it has to be the athletes, just keep it at the athletes, right? So anyway, people can't resist a junket. Also, to add on top of everything else, Bach, who came to Japan, he's going through a 3-day quarantine rather than 2-week quarantine like everybody else coming to Japan is required to do. He got a special pass. He plans to go to, I think Coates is going to Nagasaki and Bach is going to Hiroshima to pay respects at those two cities. I'm not sure that was necessary, and honestly, I don't think traveling around the country is really a good idea in the circumstances. He should just be staying in Tokyo. Apparently, Japanese press is reporting that he said to people around him that he didn't understand why the Olympics have to be held with no spectators, given that it is true that Japanese pro sports like baseball and soccer are being held in Tokyo in front of stadiums of people right now. So why can't the Olympics? Some would say that's a fair point. Some would say, shut up. A lot of people are saying shut up. A lot of people are alarmed at the tens of thousands of people coming in from every country in the world. Even vaccinated people are worried about that. That said, there haven't been very many cases of athletes coming into the country and being found to have it. I believe there's someone from Lithuania the other day. There's a couple of people from Uganda who had it. But the numbers are pretty low. Anyway, but there is a lot of anti-Olympic stuff happening at the moment, especially thinking back that the Olympics started as a vanity project of Shintaro Shihara, the nationalist sort of governor of Tokyo. On other Olympic stuff, sort of connected with this, Toyosu, which is right beside where the Olympic Village is, apparently a lot of families and support people from the Olympic teams have been wandering into the shopping mall district there, where people can get takeaway beers and drinks and go and sit in a park there. So they're thinking about walling off the park because people are complaining that lots of people from the Olympic Village have been wandering outside and drinking and mingling with the public, which is kind of like what Japanese drink as well. But at the same time, one of the ideas is that they're not supposed to be leaving the Olympic Village. It kind of highlights that the quarantine, that the voluntary quarantine system there is not working, and that's been causing a lot of discomfort. So these things will continue to cause angst. Still on Olympics, the good news is very cool to see that Rui Hachimura from the Washington Wizards he's going to be carrying the Japanese flag at the opening ceremony, along with Yui Sasaki. So that's super cool, and I think it's actually not. I wouldn't call it virtue signaling. It's actually genuinely. You look at how diverse the Japanese, like the athletics team, and many of the Olympic stars are. People having multi-ethnic backgrounds is now really prominent and actually, I dare say, even normal in the Olympic team. And so it's great to see someone from a sort of diverse background representing Japan and, breaking the stereotypes I think Japanese still afford themselves. Certainly the rest of the world probably has about Japan. It's funny, I actually find that it's often people outside of Japan have greater expectations of Japanese homogeneity than Japanese do themselves. But yeah, truth is, it's not unusual to see people from Ru's background and from multinational backgrounds who are Japanese anymore, and I think it's really cool, and it's great to have him holding the flag to show that. So that is a good thing about the Olympics, but the rest of it kind of sucks. Into the comments. The numbers are pretty low. That's how it starts. You mean in the rural towns? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but yes, certainly it starts out low, and then people from Tokyo go visiting. Paragoti, have I been vaccinated yet? You got your second shot of Pfizer next Friday. Congratulations. This Friday I'm getting my first Moderna shot. I was supposed to have a shot last week, but it got cancelled. But I got a new setup this week, so I'm looking forward to that. So that means I'll be able to get my second shot because it's Moderna. I think it's 4 weeks, so it'll be mid-August. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get it, but at the same time, I mean, I'm not going out other than jogging, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that. Paragoti, and congrats on having your second shot coming up. Just getting that done, Quint Rankard, are we discussing making sense COVID-19? Are we discussing making sense COVID-19 in Japan in the same sentence? Point taken. Yeah, valid point there. Aaron, how is it at Mitsubishi? Oh, I see there's people there talking in the comments there. Quinn Rankin, wouldn't you rather go to a stadium with a lot of people and drink beer in an emergency? Well, that would be a lot more fun. I mean, if you're going to go out, you might as well do it in style. How did I hide my money? Yeah, I had a money belt and credit cards. I had all the backups. And when I went out, I didn't put anything. I always had a bit of money in my backpack, but I wasn't, I wouldn't have been stranded in Argentina if I'd lost my backpack. And normally I just had to, slap some kids away. That was just sort of how I dealt with that. Interest in Japan, good question. Make sure to tag me. Someone had a good question. Oh, by the way, good to see Lo Wang there. Interest in Japan. What am I doing during my vacations to relieve stress in Japan? Well, I'm not really doing a lot. I'm staying at home with my family, which honestly speaking doesn't always reduce stress. Honestly, nothing. I would love to go. I don't have a car. I've never had a car the whole time I've lived in Japan. So, personally, I've been jogging has been the thing that I do mostly for stress relief. Hanging out at home, playing games with my son, going up the park, playing catch, stuff like that. Normal stuff, but that's pretty low-key stuff. Honestly, the problem with summer is that it's so hot here that you can't really escape. So that's the big thing with that. But yeah. Rui Hachimura is getting his own Nissin curry cup noodle. Well, you've made it when he says when you get your own Nissin cup noodle. So there you go. I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm still waiting for your golden ticket in Saitama, says Guys English World. Are they still allowing people to attend in Saitama? That's pretty cool. Oh, EEDIR, by the way, congratulations on getting your Moderna shot today. How are you feeling? Because I'm up for that this week. So yeah, well, I guess I'll be like 2 days after the shot. I'll be able to report this time. Wow, that's crazy. I'll be able to report this time next week on what getting Moderna is like for me. Hopefully I'll be okay. I've heard people talk about a couple of people from work who got the same shot who had like fever for 2 days. Although they thought maybe they'd had it, maybe they'd had COVID-19 late last year and stuff like that. There's a sort of they weren't sure, but I've heard that it can hit you really hard if you've actually had it. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but we'll see anyway. EEDIR, aren't there any cheap car rental companies in Japan? Yeah. Nippon Rent-A-Car is pretty cheap. I use them all the time. I'm sure there are cheaper ones, but yeah. Guys, English World, staying with my family honestly doesn't relieve stress. Yeah. And particularly in the summer here where you're just trapped inside because you can't go outside because it's so damn hot. You have that. Anyway, I'm going to keep moving on. 10 minutes left, and I do want to watch the Branson Virgin Galactic live in 10 minutes. That's definitely worth checking out. So yeah. Shoulder hurts. Nurse jabbed it pretty hard. Oh God, I hope I'm okay. I do hear that you get the Moderna arm 6 days after. I've heard like the whole arm can go red as well. Like I don't know, yeah, crazy stuff. I just want it for the improved 5G. Atami landslide last week. I think I talked about this. It seems pretty clear now. This is just another case of what often happens in Japan. That it seems like somewhere along the lines, it's not clear who the owner of this land was at the time, but at the source of the landslide that caused, these 100 and something houses to get destroyed and these people to get killed. There was basically a soil embankment. It was like a dumping site for soil from other sites, and it was classified industrial waste, i.e. it was from digging from some other site. and they got a permit to dump the soil, but there are certain like permits and specifications that you need to follow when you dump the soil. But apparently the sort of soil dumping that took place at the top of this mountain, which got water laden and became a mudslide, they're only supposed to put 15 centimeters of soil on this slope. And they put 50 centimeters, but at the same time, it was all permitted by the city council and by the prefecture. And it's another one of these cases that happens all the time in Japan, where the rules are just kind of fuzzy. People, and there's lax enforcement. There's reliance upon voluntary, compliance. And this is in places like Shizuoka, actually. Around Mount Fuji, there's a lot of companies that Mount Fuji is a waste land in a way from all the industrial waste that just gets dumped in the middle of the night by trucks up there, because the illegal disposal laws are so soft and there's so little enforcement. So you have these construction companies and industrial companies that just take advantage and do this, and this is what it seems like it happens. Some companies just went and dumped way too much soil at the top of this hill with no covering, and it just got waterlogged, and it killed a whole bunch of people and destroyed a bunch of houses. So now it sounds like people are looking to see if there are similar sort of dangerous sites around the country, which I'm sure there are. This sort of thing, unfortunately, does happen in Japan too often, particularly in the sort of construction sort of industry sort of thing. A lot of dodgy stuff going on with that. A lot of organized crime syndicates sort of tie up with construction companies, and they sort of do things, together basically for helping, illegally dump waste and whatnot. That seems to be the cause. Very unfortunate. Still looking for people right now. And, it's gone from the rainy season where it was flooded to being now, like today, 33 degrees and high humidity. How tough it is for the people there at the moment. Both the people, the families waiting, and the rescue workers still digging through. I can't even imagine. Atami itself is a famous onsen town. It's a lovely place. I think I've stayed there myself, actually. So the good news is that people are not, the people who lost their houses are actually able to stay in the hotels in the area, which is nice. But still pretty awful, and something which unfortunately, Japan is just so mountainous and so prone to these kind of landslide kind of risks and these sort of freak storm risks that, yes, unfortunately, that is a thing that happens. Back into the comments. Jogging is good. You envy me. When am I taking you fishing? I haven't been fishing for a long time. I would love to take Everett out fishing, but I wouldn't know where to start doing that. Lysander 45, how long does the summer go for? Will it be humid AF when you arrive in Osaka next month? If you are arriving in Osaka next month, yes. August, late July, August, September are miserable. They are horrible. You are going to... I'm sorry, but it is going to suck. Late September, October, it gets better. November is lovely, best time of the year. But August, forget about it. August, I would actually, I'm sorry to say this, Lysander 45, but if you're going to be in Osaka in August, I would almost suggest you reschedule that trip. You'll spend a lot of time indoors. It'll be miserable. But anyway. Be prepared. Drink lots of fluids. Not that much, Tess. After the second Pfizer shot, you had a speed up flu. Oh, geez. It's worth it all, though, because it's really good with scanning a QR code and you have a cert on your phone. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a vaccine passport as well. And, I think it's a good affirmative way to encourage people to get vaccinated. Bob Turner, good to see you. Tikio Sam, excellent to see you. All of that stuff. I'm going to go into the remaining stories. 5 more minutes. Speaking of gangsters, feels good to be a gangster, says the Minister for the Pandemic. When he announced the upcoming measures for the new state of emergency in Tokyo, which is going to be basically from today until August 22nd, so the Olympics will be held under a state of emergency in Tokyo. We got up to, like, on Friday, it was like 950 cases, which is alarming and scary and a lot. But then on the other hand, you're also like, well, 950, when is it going to be 1,000? Part of me, the completionist in me, just wants a round number, even if it's bad. But it's pretty awful. It is going up like 1.5, 1.4 times, 1.3 times week over week at the moment. Basically, it's adding like 200 cases over the same day the previous week every day at the moment in Tokyo. So it's bad. It is really interesting, though. The numbers are showing that the serious and hospitalized cases have not gone up for people over 65, which are like now 70% now vaccinated or something like that in Tokyo. However, the increasing serious cases are from people in their 40s and 50s. Who are not in the area, the age groups which have been widely vaccinated yet. So it's showing that the vaccines work, that they are protecting people, but it also shows that without them you're still kind of screwed, and particularly if you're in 40s or 50s. It turns out with this Delta variant that you're more prone to become serious, and in fact there are cases of people in the 20s and 30s ending up in hospital from the Delta variant. So it's a lot scarier, obviously. So all of that said, the minister said that in terms of the state of emergency measures, such as they are, there's no real lockdown here. They're going to ban selling alcohol, but it still is going to be voluntary. They're going to be asking, there's no arrest or enforcement or anything around this, but they'll be asking places that sell alcohol to stop selling alcohol altogether, and even without selling alcohol to close before 8 p.m. And he suggested that in order to foster voluntary compliance, the government would be tracking restaurants and bars that do not, that sell alcohol after 8 p.m. and that sell alcohol during this period, and the government will collect their information and share it with banks, and have those banks and moneylenders encourage their cooperation. I mean, it sounded very Godfather. It sounded basically like the government was going to dox companies that didn't voluntarily decide to stop selling alcohol, and lean on money lending institutions to not give them financing. I mean, straight up Yakuza, like extortion sort of tactics, and it got so much criticism. The banks didn't want to do it. The government was like, when the press asked the Prime Minister the next day, are you really going to extort, are you really going to pressure banks to blackmail bars and so on, and threaten them with withholding loans if they don't, if they sell alcohol? And the Prime Minister said, no, we would never say such a thing, which they did, so they had to retract it. But yeah, that also reminds me, I think I mentioned the other week about this case of the IT procurement of NEC. Sort of having the digital minister say that we should just intimidate them into letting go of the contract. It turns out that they actually recontracted that contract after they got NEC to voluntarily drop it through an offer they couldn't refuse, and they gave the new sort of app building project to NTT, which was a couple of days after they had taken the digital minister out on a wonderful dining, dinner entertainment sort of thing, just after NTT had itself been punished for wining and dining for favors the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. So Japan, it's kind of a mess. It kind of works, but it's kind of a mess. I mean, these are not a good look. And again, the Godfathers of Japanese politics. That is the state of emergency going through to the August 22nd, by the way. And I tell you what, without vaccines, I don't see how this is ever going to end, actually, which is why I can't wait. I mean, I guess if I'm going to get vaccinated on the 16th, I could be fully vaccinated by the time the state of emergency ends. So, me and a lot of other people are like that. That's the way out anyway. But for now, it still is kind of scary. I'm going to race through. Taro Kono, after bragging last week about how fast Japan had gone, basically jamming to get as many people vaccinated as possible, he actually sent out a message this week saying to all the municipalities that have gone way too fast vaccinating people, if you keep going at this pace, we won't be able to supply you, we won't be able to ensure proper distribution of second shots for everybody. So we'll need the municipalities going a bit too wild, going a bit too fast. So please pace yourselves. So he's literally gone ScoMo. He's gone, it's a marathon. A couple of days after bragging how fast Japan was going. So this is kind of the situation that the guy, and it's partially a supply issue, but not really a supply issue. It's just that the government doesn't have the logistics to distribute it fast enough. It turns out that when they make it available, the enthusiasm for the shots is totally there. The other thing that's great is that, of course, the elderly appear to, nationwide, it's actually 76% of elderly so far, over 65 have been vaccinated, and it's totally voluntary. So in spite of all of the concerns about vaccine hesitancy and all of that, people seem to be doing it voluntarily. So, it looks like the signs are that, Japan is going to affirmatively try to get vaccinated. But, I have a big concern, of course, because kids can't be vaccinated. Can the whole population get to 70% vaccination? But, the signs are so far, at least among elderly, that, maybe they can. Of course, elderly at the greatest risk. And this is an indication that sort of numbers 950 the other day. So, not good. The R number for Tokyo right now, I think you can see on here, it'll be whereas 127.9%. So that's R1.2. You know, that's R1.3. So not good. Anyway, numbers are going up like crazy. A couple of other things. I think I mentioned the Tokyo elections last week, which actually, yeah, it turns out that the Tomin First, the existing party of the governor of Tokyo, did surprisingly well. The LDP did surprisingly badly. The result is 41 women got elected, although almost none came from the LDP or Komeito. They still don't know how to find women to represent them, but the other parties had a record number of female representatives in the Tokyo Assembly, including one woman who was apparently had a cancelled driver's license, or what do you call it, revoked driver's license for being, you know, for driving offences earlier. Yet the day before the election, she actually was driving a car while campaigning, and she crashed into somebody. And so she's been kicked out of her party, but is refusing to resign. So still holding on to 41. So there we go. But yes, by and large, other than her, everyone seems very good. This seems really cool. I haven't seen this, but apparently in Shinjuku, right in front of Shinjuku Station, if you go there right now, there's a screen with a big 3D cat there. And if you look at the videos of it, it is amazing. And I want to see it. Japanese getting old are going to have to keep working. A look into the future of the world. I mean, it's hard to think that the retirement age is a question whether there'll even be a retirement age, frankly, in the future. And it's something to think about for long term as well, like, you know, making sure that you can have economic security, you know, beyond when you get that old. Like certainly 1 in 3 right now are remaining in employment. Shinjuku has just started a new construction project. Honestly, Shinjuku is always under construction. I think it is the largest train station in the world. The new project is going to, it looks very nice, but it's not going to be finished until 2047. So, you know, no, it's basically perpetually under construction, and that's fine. Nagoya Station, there is actually a pretty cool video from Nagoya Station, if I can show this, of maybe getting the audio of this, maybe not, but yeah, man with a knife walking through Nagoya Station, so pretty scary. Oh, and check this out. Woman police officer with a shield and a man there. They tackle this guy with the knife. They threw the knife on the floor, and I mean, I love it. I love the fact that no one ever needed to pull a gun, that they were two not large police officers, and, you know, no fear, just went up to the guy, you know, disarmed him, threw him to the ground, cuffed him. Good job. I must say, you know, Japanese police get a bad rep, but, you know, particularly that woman police officer just walking straight up to the guy with the knife, disarming him, throwing him to the ground, like that could have stopped a pretty serious incident. So that was cool. And that's it. That's all the topics. So, of course, yeah, not even Virgin Galactic could make me be on time, but I'm only 4 minutes over, so I'm doing better than usual. 2047, yes, that's right, Sergeant Bilko. So, yeah, you know, nothing's perfect. I see there are no other comments there. So, look, remember, that was the show tonight. Some stuff I don't normally talk about, but, you know, good to talk about every now and then, and remind people, if you're thinking about coming and living in Japan, to make sure you've got a plan B and do take good care of yourself, and know that there are resources out there to help, you know, if you do need it. Wherever you are, take good care of yourself and have a plan B for whatever you're doing. If you like the video, remember to like. I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. I really love everybody always dropping comments and saying hello. Hope everybody is well. Take care, particularly if you're in Japan. The heat is starting. It's miserable. I'm looking forward to the Olympics. Hell, I might even get some of those underwear. I don't know. Yeah, just, you know, if I feel like, if there's a day where I feel like I might be, you know, at risk of making bad decisions, I you know, just put those on as a sort of, yeah, a self-check. Who knows? There again, I'd have to be able to see them. Yeah, I suppose it depends on the kinds of decisions that you plan to make. Anyway, that's the show. I am going to go and watch Virgin Galactic now. Hope you all have a good day, a good week. I'll see you next week. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up with this stuff during the week. And kakita no, peace. Boom. Any stream. End.